Hello and welcome to Mind Shifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour. And today is Friday, January 8th, 2021. And as always, we're grateful to everyone who's joining us here today, whether you're live or in the archives, as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools I have encountered in my over 46 years of doing therapy. These tools are gratefully available absolutely free at whyagain.org. If you go to that website and click on the red and white bullseye, or the link in the upper left-hand corner of most pages that says Start Here, it will take you to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Ryce's book. His book is titled, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? That chapter of that book is a narrative description of the primary tool in this work. That tool is called the Reality Management Worksheet, sometimes called the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet. And it's a tool that I've been using for over 16 years, maybe 17 years. I lose track of time sometimes. To improve the quality of my life by managing my emotions, by recalibrating my perceptual mechanism whenever I have a negative emotion occurring, and I get more clarity, I see things more accurately, and I make decisions that benefit my life far more consistently when I choose to use a tool like this to see the source of my negative emotion clearly prior to deciding or choosing how to respond to the life events. And so if you're curious about that, if you're interested in any way, if there's any aspect of your life that's not perfectly glowing and effervescent and just exactly the way you want it to be, this tool might be of use to you. You can go to that website, click and read the download of the Chapter 24 of his book. You can also download the actual worksheet process itself. You can also go to your app store, either Google Play or the Apple App Store, and type in the three words Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness. And by the time you're done typing the word Aramaic, A-R-A-M-A-I-C, you'll see the glowing heart icon, and you can click on that and download a completely free and private app that will give you access to the Reality Management Worksheet, an abbreviated version of that process, and a copy of the Dragon-Klingon game. On that same page, you'll also see a link to download MP3 files of select shows from our internet shows over the past 9.5 years that have been singled out as of special interest. And some of them are shows in which people have called in and been stepped through the actual worksheet process. So those shows can serve as a tutorial for how to use this worksheet tool yourself. Other of those shows have recordings of people calling in and giving powerful testimonials about how the application of that tool has changed their life for the better. And some of them are highlight shows where the overview of the principles at play that allow these tools to have such powerful benefit in our lives are discussed. So we're encouraging people to do that soon and often, and then if you have comments or questions, give us a call. Our call-in number is 563-999-3581, and if you call that number and press 1, it'll put a little question mark by your phone number, and we can announce it by your area code. As I mentioned, that Reality Management Worksheet is only the primary tool in this work. It's certainly not the only tool, and if you scroll down further on that page, there are a list of worksheets that you can download and print off absolutely free. You can also have, if you have any questions about any of those tools or how to apply them in your life, that's what the Internet show is here for 5 days a week in its current format, 2 hours a day. Our call-in number is 563-999-3581. If you call that number and press 1, it'll put a little question mark by your phone number, and I'll announce it by your area code, and we can have a discussion. Speaking of which, we have decided to do the Course in Miracles lessons this year, one a day. There are 365 days in the year, and oddly enough, 365 lessons for Course in Miracles. Today being January 8th, Lesson 8 is up. And Lesson 8 reads, "My mind is preoccupied with past thoughts." A quick recap lets us know that yesterday, the Lesson 7 was, "I see only the past." And today's lesson is, "My mind is preoccupied with past thoughts." Again, these lessons are suggested to be applied morning and evening in a leisurely way and and by leisurely I mean without creating a lot of pressure or tension on myself. And the discussion after this statement of this lesson, Lesson 8, is, "My mind is preoccupied with past thoughts." This idea is, of course, the reason why you see only the past. No one really sees anything. He sees only his thoughts projected outward. The mind's preoccupation with the past is the cause of the misconception about time from which your seeing suffers. So your seeing suffers from a misperception, a misconception of time. Your mind cannot grasp the present, which is the only time there actually is. It therefore cannot understand time and cannot, in fact, understand anything. So our minds make up stories. Our minds predict and hallucinate what they can't see directly. If you want some evidence about that, Anil Seth has a video you can see on YouTube. Anil is his first name. Seth is his second name. If you search for Anil Seth and hallucinate reality or hallucinate perception, there's some of the more recent science on this point that Course in Miracles is addressing here. Your mind cannot grasp the present, and the present is the only time there is. Your mind, therefore, cannot understand time and cannot, in fact, understand anything. The one wholly true thought one can hold about the past is that it is not here. To think about it at all is therefore to think about illusions. Very few have realized what is actually entailed in picturing the past or in anticipating the future. The mind is actually blank when it does this because it's not really thinking about anything. The purpose of the exercises for today is to begin to train your mind to recognize what is not really thinking at all. While thoughtless ideas preoccupy your mind, the truth is blocked. Recognizing that your mind has been merely blank, rather than believing that it is filled with real ideas, this is the first step to opening the way to vision. Dr. Michael Ryce likes to say in one of his lectures, if most people said what they thought, they'd be speechless, because most people don't have actual thought. They have energies, old memories, trauma energies resonated in them, filling their minds, and they're reliving, redoing, seeing things from the past. It's not that spiritual faculty of true perception. This lesson goes on to say, the exercises for today should be done with eyes closed. This is because you actually cannot see anything with your eyes. And it is easier to recognize that no matter how vividly you may picture a thought, you're not seeing anything. With as little investment as possible, search your mind for the usual minute or so, merely noting the thoughts that you find there. Name each one by the central figure or theme it contains. and then pass on to the next. Introduce the practice period by saying, I seem to be thinking about my bank account. Then name each of your thoughts specifically. For example, I seem to be thinking about Larry and John and Barbara and Kathy. And at the end of that mind-searching period, simply say this, but my mind is preoccupied with past thoughts. This can be done for 4 or 5 minutes during the day unless you find it irritates you. If you find it trying, 3 or 4 times is sufficient. You might find it helpful, however, to include your irritation or any emotion that the idea for today may induce in that mind searching that you're doing. And then simply repeat, but my mind is preoccupied with past thoughts. I seem to be irritated at the thought that I have to do this lesson, but my mind is irritated or is preoccupied with past thoughts. I seem to be feeling shame that I can't do the Course in Miracles lessons as regularly as I'd like to, but my mind is preoccupied with past thoughts. So that's the lesson from the actual book, Course in Miracles. Here's Pam Grout's writing. She calls this chapter The Wrecking Ball. She quotes Julie McIntyre, who says, there comes a point when you know, without doubt, without hesitation, that you cannot go back to your old life. You cannot be who you once were and also have a new life with new riches. The chapter says, the past sometimes comes in handy, like when ordering a pair of sneakers on Zappos. It eliminates a lot of back and forth shipping if I know I wear size 9. Or when I come to an intersection, knowing that the red octagonal signal means to stop. That prevents unnecessary collisions. But other than a few useful details, the past is mostly a prison. The past prevents me from seeing and experiencing life as it is now. When I continue to regurgitate my past, the glorious field of infinite potentiality can't get in. Nothing can ever change. Lesson 8 reads, my mind is preoccupied with past thoughts. I know it might seem rather pointless to look at my thoughts 4 or 5 times a day and call them out as the posers that they are, but it doesn't matter what I think of the exercises. It just matters that I do them. What's pointless are all the invalid decisions and assumptions I've made about what's best for me. Today, I surrender my defenses, my fool bullheadedness, and my convictions. I surrender that all, that I must figure everything out. I fall back into the loving arms of the universe, whose sole purpose is to dish up my good. So today I surrender all my defenses. I surrender my bullheadedness. I surrender my convictions that I must figure everything out. I cancel my need to be right, as each worksheet prompts me to do. And I fall back into the loving arms of the universe, whose sole purpose is to dish up my good. So, our call-in number is 563-999-3581. And we did have a hand up, but that has disappeared. But if you call that number and press 1, we can have a conversation. What does that stir up for you? Any of the first 8 lessons in Course in Miracles, or any of the things we've talked about from A Course in Miracles Made Easy, or any other topic on your mind about your life today, and any work you may be doing to deprogram yourself from the angry, bitter, hurt, fearful, resentful, overwhelmed perceptions and patterns of thought that you were raised with, and open yourself to the possibility that you might learn to perceive radically differently. That's what, again, what the Course is trying to help us do, is move to a space where we can perceive truly, true perception, a spiritual faculty, as Dr. Michael Ryce calls it. And these tools are discussions. They are not about proving who's right or wrong. They are not about getting into intellectual discussions. It's about giving me the tools to usher myself into a new experience of life, a different experience of life. We had our support group last night, and we listened to probably only about half an hour or 40 minutes of Ganga Ji. And man, it's only about 20 minutes. And she's talking about stopping all of the judgment, all of the working, all of the striving to be different, and sitting with being who we truly are, letting the essence of our true self, of beingness, inform us and create our experience. And this gave rise to a discussion in the group about how do I do that? And of course it's circular logic. It's almost impossible to talk about with words. The idea is being is accomplished automatically. It's what's already happening. We don't get to experience it because we are doing too much else. We are thinking too many other things. I read something recently where they said, the problem with sorting all of this stuff out and talking about how restrictive language is for expressing actuality is that we have to use words to talk about how limiting words are. So if you've never listened to any Ganga Ji talks, you can go on YouTube and type in her name and listen. And it's a very even, slow pace discussion that she has. You might call them monologues, but when I listen to her, I think more in terms of the way Krishnamurti used to write and talk about how the speaker is having a discussion. We're in a conversation with the audience. Don't be fooled by the fact that I'm the only one talking right now. In order for this to have any value, you have to be engaged in examining these statements and questions and observations for yourself. So we'll have a discussion. We'll look into this together. Look into your own experience. Please question everything the speaker says. Questioning it for yourself, allowing yourself to see, in quotes, perceive accurately, is the only way that a new level of value or experience can be ushered into your life. And so Ganga Ji was talking about the primary teaching from her teacher, guru, whatever word you want to call it, was to tell her, just stop. And when he first told her, just stop, she thought, oh, okay, I should meditate, I should breathe, I should get in the right pose, and he would say, stop. Oh, so I have to watch my thoughts, and he would say, just stop. Eventually, she finally realized that even when she thought she was doing something that would help her stop, she was still doing things. And the part of her that was doing was striving. And the part that was striving was not allowing, was not experiencing her value, her essence, her awareness, the power of life flowing through her. And her experience of the truth and the power and the expansiveness of the true self was being blocked from her by all of those thoughts and all of those layers and all of those strivings. I don't think it's a coincidence that the core tool in this work with Dr. Michael Ryce that's helped me so dramatically over the past 10 years asks me in every worksheet to stop, to cancel my need to be right, to cancel my need for anyone or anything to change. It asks me to put my conscious logical mind on the shelf for now and ask to be shown, to put myself in the most open, allowing, receptive space I can conjure and ask to be shown. And then simply trust that whatever comes into my awareness in those next few moments or minutes, however long I choose to stay in that little meditative space in each worksheet, anything that comes into my awareness is of value, is going to be part of what I need to see to begin to heal there and move forward. And it's going to come into my awareness because I asked to be shown. Area code 484, you're in the air. Who do we have?
Hi, Dr. Tim. This is Ellen.
Well, hello, Ellen. How can we support you today?
Well, I just wanted to make a comment because when you what you were just talking about and how this really kind of leapt out at me when I was reading the lesson this morning. That sentence that says, the mind cannot grasp the present. When I first read that, I thought, oh, okay, my mind cannot correctly perceive the present, like it can't understand the present. But then I looked at it in a literal way. And I realized, oh, we can't actually grasp what is flowing. We're trying, and it's like what you were just talking about, like it's like an absence of grabbing onto or holding on to something. It's because I can't even say it's letting go, because letting go sounds like you're doing something. But it's allowing yourself just to fall into the present and let it take you.
All right, and to help you out here from a slightly different perspective, Michael Ryce quotes David Bohm in every worksheet process. David Bohm coined the term sustained incoherence. That's a term that David Bohm uses to try and describe what Krishnamurti talked about as a fundamental flaw in thought that is responsible for creating my mental and emotional pain and suffering. So as I try to use the part of my mind that uses words and that conceptualizes things to understand the present moment, I push myself further away from the possibility of having the experience of the present moment.
That makes sense.
It's really, really hard for the Western mind to comprehend because we've been trained to believe that our experience of the world only comes through that conscious logical mind, which was trained to see things through language, which was trained to see things through the filters that our parents and family and culture have indoctrinated us into. And yet, many cultures for many thousands of years have understood that there are other ways to perceive, to experience. There are energies, there are rivulets of input into our awareness, which is not tied simply to the cognitive brain. So this is how we can have people who have, these insights and intuitions and synchronicities happen and premonitions about things that come true, because that's not coming through the conscious logical mind. That's not tied to the processes of language, to the limitations of language. So the idea is, if I try to use that same mind that can remember my shoe size and what the stoplight at the intersection is for and the route to get to work, if I try to use that mind to perceive the moment, I destroy any potential of true perception. Because I'm using, it's basically like using an eyedropper full of water to try and understand what the ocean is. Dr. Michael Ryce cites the research that said, in a period of time that 10,000 units of electrical activity fire in your brain, it's estimated that, so your brain's processing 10,000 bits of information. In that same period of time, it's estimated that the most you can be aware of is 9 single individual bits of information. And one way to talk about it is there's probably at least 20 trillion bits of information hitting your senses. Now again, this is just one way to talk about it. But the fact of the matter is, every time they study it, they keep coming up with scientific proof that we are only experiencing a tiny fraction of what hits our senses. And we know, because of our science, that our senses don't record everything there is that's going on. My senses don't record ultraviolet light, infrared light, radio waves, microwaves, auras, chakra energy. My senses don't record those things. So there's all kinds of stuff going on that my senses can't even touch, and I'm only becoming consciously aware of 9 single bits out of the 10,000 units my carbon-based memory, my brain is processing during a period of time that 20 trillion bits of information are hitting my senses, and there's probably, 100,000 gazillion bits available to be experienced within my range of perception outside of my senses, and I'm only seeing 9 bits of it, and I want to tell you what the moment is using a language. Using 26 letters.
Yeah, and what really struck me as I had that recognition this morning about it's not just an intellectual grasping, it's also literally like a physical grasping, I thought, wow, it's kind of like trying to grasp, a stream of water or the breeze.
Yes, exactly.
You cannot. And what's so interesting, though, is I've been times that I have really allowed myself just to, like, if I start feeling a really intense emotion and I just go with it, I have been informed by that emotion. Like one time it took me into a spontaneous regression to my infancy, which I never would have remembered, something from that age. But it was very valuable information for me to have. And another time, I was sitting on the couch crying, and all of a sudden, I felt my mouth doing something really weird. I'm like, I'm not moving my mouth, but my mouth is moving. And the next thing I knew, words started to come out of my mouth. And it was about what the grief was. But I didn't even know where this came from. But it was like I see now how when I just allow myself to be, like you said, to because so much of my issue is like suppressing my emotions. So when I finally do allow myself to just be with whatever is coming up and flowing with it, that those emotions actually they give me very valuable information. And that's not, like you said, that's not coming through my conscious, that part of my mind that
thinks about it, puts language on it, right? Rationally steps back through your past to put it all together accurately, right? That is not the part of your mind that gives you insight and intuition. Exactly.
Right. Very interesting.
Yeah, that's why these, just actually sitting with the concept of trying to grab a stream of water with my hand and realizing that using words to describe the present moment is never going to be anywhere even as close to as successful as trying to grab a stream of water with my hand. My hand at least gets wet if I try and grab a stream of water with my hand, but I don't even approach that if I try to understand the present moment with the mind that gives me language that I use to put my shoes on, that I use to drive to the store.
Right, and what I just also recognized was this idea of grabbing onto like the flow of water or the flow of air, which of course we can't do. Those seem to be the way that we get the insights and the intuition. I mean, like I was just talking about how it was coming to me through emotion, which is like a flow of water, but I also get it sometimes through, it just, boom, pops into my mind. Just there. I don't know how I know what, and that's almost like coming through air. So I see now how it relates to those elements of like water and air. It's very interesting.
Well, and I just had the thought that if I said if you had a dropper full of ocean water, and you thought that was going to teach you everything you need to know about the ocean, just one dropper full of water, right? An eyedropper of ocean water. But the truth of it is, it's more like if I have a picture of an eyedropper of water, and then I think I know all there is to know about the ocean.
Right.
It's so far removed from actuality. There is no possibility for me to comprehend the present moment with the mind that prepares my lunch and drives my car and has me figure out my iPhone. No possibility.
Yeah, and then we all seem to have such a fear of not knowing, which is really the place that we need to go.
Well, and understand that fear is programmed in. What we're afraid of has been programmed into us.
Yes, and I love the acronym, false evidence appearing real.
Yep.
Manufacture it.
Dr. Michael Ryce, in one of his talks, probably it was in his, I forget, I've listened to so many of these talks so many times, I don't know. But he talks about if you have somebody who was raised in the jungle and no technology, and they're riding with you in a car on a highway in the United States, and you're driving and they're the passenger, which only makes sense because they don't really have any idea about technology. And all of a sudden, in your rearview mirror, you see these flashing lights spinning. And instantly, you have a fear response. Now, this person who is, raised in the wild and the jungle is an excellent observer, and so they instantly notice. They feel the energy coming off of you, they see the shift in your muscle tension, and they ask you what's going on. And then you point to the back and the flashing lights, and they turn back and look at the lights and go, "Oh, how beautiful. Wow, I've never seen anything like that before." And you're sitting with fear, and they're sitting with wonder. So why am I afraid if I'm driving that car? Because I've been programmed to put meaning. Right? And what happens most of the time, for those of us who are good drivers, what happens most of the time when we see flashing lights in the rear view mirror?
We get out of the way.
They drive right past us. Right? We're all freaked out. The adrenaline comes up. I hope I didn't do it. I hope I'm not getting arrested. I hope I'm not getting a ticket. What did I do wrong? We're racing through all of that stuff. And the vast majority of times, for those of us who are good drivers, when that happens, the lights go right past us. Mm-hmm. And so there was no danger for us. But
I was thinking of not a police, but yes, same thing.
Oh, you had a different association for the lights.
Yes, I had ambulance.
There you go. Right? There you go. And I didn't specify that it was police, although it was fairly clear in the example Dr. Ryce was giving in that lecture that he's talking about, a police officer. And then he said, so here's the same scenario. You're with that person and you're back in their native environment. And you're walking along together, and all of a sudden they go into a fear response, a tight, tense, alert response. And you're just humming along like, I'm just listening to the grasshoppers and the birds and the trees. And your friend has heard the sound of, in Michael Ryce's lecture, he says, a rattlesnake. But you're not aware, and he doesn't know how to communicate to you that it's a rattlesnake. And it isn't until he looks in his book and translates from his native language to English and spits out the word rattlesnake, it's not until then that your fear response kicks in. Why? Because you've been conditioned to have that response. So you were talking about our fears, and I just have to point out, the good news is, if we've been conditioned to fear, we can undo that conditioning. We can learn to observe the conditioning and the thought process, and as we observe it fully, clearly, start to finish, all the way to its origins, it loses its power over us. Just as anyone who is able to experience wholly the present moment is not in fear about the future or in upset about the past. Any person who has an experience of the full presence moment begins to understand something about time that cannot be comprehended by anybody who hasn't had that experience yet.
Mm-hmm.
So, as this lesson tries to point out to us, we are trained to use our mind to believe we know things. And as we talked about in the previous lessons, I don't know what anything is or is for.
Yes. And I am going to have to go now.
I am only upset. Go ahead. Thank you. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you so much. I have an appointment I need to run off to, but I really appreciate the conversation.
Well, thank you for the call. I look forward to the next time you can talk with us. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
So in the lessons that we've reviewed up until now, we have things that are calling us to understand, to question that I'm never upset for the reason I think I am, that I'm only upset because I see something that's not really there, that I give everything I see all the meaning it has for me, that the thoughts that occupy my mind don't mean anything other than the meaning I give them, and that I do not understand anything that I see. So if we allow ourselves to observe, we can have the experience of realizing the truth of some of these statements and lessons. Just as, to understand an ocean, any ocean, one has to spend years in experience in, around that dynamic living feature of nature. And if somebody says, "Oh, I know the ocean," it's as ridiculous as somebody saying, "Oh, I know the present moment. I know all about time." And we wouldn't think we could say we know the ocean if we had, an eyedropper full of actual ocean water. But the truth of it is, thinking we know about the present moment is as ridiculous as thinking we know all about the ocean because we saw a picture of an eyedropper full of ocean water. We haven't even held the ocean water in our hand. So, our call-in number is 563-999-3581. If you call that number and press 1, we can have a conversation. How can we support you today? We have 16 minutes left. We have one other person in the chat room. We had somebody there who dropped off. Welcome, Susan.
Hey, hi, Dr. Tim. Good conversation with Ellen. Yeah, I have a question that's not really related, but you said you could bring up anything. So I've been reading this Anthony DeMello book, and I don't have the quote with me. And you probably remember the place where he says, you can tell somebody that you don't like their company as much as somebody else's company, and so you're going to go with them to something. Do you remember that? Because if you don't, I can run upstairs. Yeah.
Yes.
So, of course, I went into a mild panic. I'm thinking, okay, I can let out my monster. And this will not be good. This will not be pretty. I would never dream of saying to someone that I like somebody else's company better than theirs. And I can't imagine anybody else who's learned a modicum of civility, no matter whether we're asses or not, we are, treating anybody like that or saying something like that. That's an unnecessarily cruel truth. Comments, please.
Well, my first comment is that the cruelty is, you've heard the phrase a double-edged sword?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is, whatever I say or don't say to somebody is a double-edged sword. So I suppose that you are trying to help me believe, or you would like to have me join you in believing that it is not cruel to lie to somebody and tell them I enjoy their company when I really don't, but it is cruel to tell them the truth.
But you don't have to do either one of them.
Okay.
I agree with what you're saying. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You could just.
But listen to it this way. Guy Finley does quite a bit of addressing this type of topic in several of his talks. He talks about, he clearly has had an issue in his life of fawning over people and trying to get people to like him. People who, by the way, he clearly didn't care for and doesn't enjoy spending time with, because he talks about it a lot in his his older tapes. This idea
Yeah.
of fawning and then spending time with people trying to get them to like you. And these are people you don't even like being with. So it's the same kind of thing that Anthony DeMello is coming at. He's basically, to my eye and ear in that section of discussion in the book, he's talking about the same kind of thing that Way of Mastery talks about and Course in Miracles talks about special relationship. And Dr. Michael Ryce talks about in terms of codependent relationship. So if I have the belief that if I said to somebody, just warmly, genuinely, listen, I'm going to go, I'm going to go spend time with them because I really have fun with them, and I'm looking forward to it, that is somehow hurting that person. This is an error in my thought. The fact of the matter is, if I'm honest, if I'm genuine, if I'm in the moment, and I say it with civility and respect, for all I know, they're going to be relieved because they didn't really like spending that much time with me either. But if I build all of these thoughts about, oh boy, I better do the mental math about how they're going to react and how it might hurt their feelings and how they might not want to, include me in their group next time. And if I do all of that, I'm pulling myself further and further away from the actuality in the present moment. I'm pulling myself further and further away from the capital T truth. And as I isolate myself from the truth, I create more problems in my life. Period. It's like gravity. It's just the way it works. It's one of those natural laws. Every time I hide from myself or someone else a truth, I create a ripple effect of consequences, and they're not going to lead to what I would like to have. Now, each of us is free to apply the awareness of this actuality in whatever way we find useful. So you might be one who decides that when you have a preference to be with one person over another, you just make sure that you don't end up in a situation where you have to announce that to somebody.
Right.
That you just avoid people that you don't want to spend time with, and or you may decide that you're going to bite the bullet and suffer and pretend that you're having fun with people that you really don't want to be with, rather than face the discomfort you would feel if you thought you had offended them. And that's perfectly okay. It's your life to live.
Mm-hmm.
What all of these great spiritual teachings are calling us to is just to become aware of what we are doing in that choice of how we're living our life.
Yeah.
They're not telling us what we have to do or what we should do. They're saying, here it is. As I do this, I create that effect.
Well, I certainly get and agree with what you're saying. If I were the copy editor of that book, though, I would have said to Anthony DeMello, read that part again, and maybe you might want to change something in there.
Right, but it's very clear. It's very clear that if Susan Bingham had written that book, it would be a very different book.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's so funny. I went on YouTube last night in one of my midnight wakings up and thought, I wonder if there's anything of Anthony DeMello on there on YouTube. Certainly there's a ton. Is he still alive, by the way? Do you know?
No, he died quite young.
He did. Oh, too bad. But I was just surprised to see him physically. He was very different from what I had imagined him to look like. And so, you make those adjustments, or I do. It just adds another dimension. It's always fun. For instance, that happened with our intensive. I have heard the voices of Anne, Julie Matthews, over the phone for so long, and then suddenly we were looking at each other, and I'm thinking, wow, that person doesn't look anything like what I pictured. And I'm a very visual person, so I have to kind of reshape things, but that shows you about the mind and about projections and all kinds of things, but I'm getting too far afield of this thing. But anyway, yeah, the way Anthony speaks and the way he looked was a surprise. It just didn't quite fit into my picture for a while. That's neither here nor there, but I was thinking, well, he's a little bit rough-hewn, and, in my cultural background, nobody would ever dream of saying, I'd rather spend time with Joe because I really don't like your company as much as I like Joe's. And I can't imagine you saying that either, but your point is, what kind of lie are we living? What kind of offense are we committing? Either the obvious outward one where the other person feels the toe stepped on right then, or the more amorphous general insult of having someone not be genuine.
There you go.
With them.
I'm turning on the microphone for Mary.
Okay.
Hi. I
Hi.
don't know what's doing this one, Tim. I think what Anthony DeMello said it seems different than the way you phrased it. I don't know, it's so funny. To me, what he said would be like Susan telling one of the girls at the intensive who didn't look like she expected, "Boy, you're uglier than I thought." I don't know. How is that necessary?
Yeah, right. Right. Or
I
you're
just
older,
think,
or you're
there's
skinnier.
total honesty, and then there's, do they need to hear what I think? I don't know. It seems that seems really weird to me too. I don't know. I can't get that yet.
Yep.
Well,
I'm with
again,
you, Mary.
look at the interpretation you have. Notice what happened earlier with Ellen. I was trying to replay a story from one of Michael Ryce's DVDs, and I'm thinking the flashing lights in the rearview mirror mean a police officer, and she's thinking an ambulance, and it's spinning in different directions because of the mind energy each of us has that gets stirred up when we hear certain things or read certain words.
Right.
Right. How many
That's
times
true.
have we had people come in the support groups and we're showing a Michael Ryce DVD that's basically all about how we're all made of love and we're all the same, and then we sit around the table and people say, "Oh my God, I can't believe this guy's so negative."
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
So every time I'm reading a book or I'm listening to a lecture, and I have one of those assessments that leaves me with a negative feeling, I want to address that within myself. How am I creating a negative response to this? That's my first level of my own work. And then after I've dismantled that negative emotional state or judgment, then I have the ability to step back and start looking at what was said, seeing it differently, maybe dramatically differently, maybe I still see it the same way. But without the emotional filter, I'm capable of seeing it more accurately.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if
I'll have to put some thought into
8
it,
out of
'cause
10 or 7 out of 10 things that you read in Anthony DeMello strike you as, wow, that's great, that's beautifully said, I really agree with that, and all of a sudden you read something in his book or you hear something on one of his YouTube videos and you go, wow, that's completely cockeyed, that's wrong, I would never, probably something going on inside me that got triggered there, that it will prevent me from seeing the true meaning or whatever potentially might be useful in that reading or lecture until after I've dismantled my negative emotional response.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't,
I might, in my own messed upness, I might say something cruel or mean that didn't need to be said. And that just seems like one. I don't know. I'll put some thought into it and read it again. Mm-hmm.
Well, but that's right. If I say something that's mean and cruel and doesn't need to be said, that's on me. Anthony DeMello is certainly not telling us to walk around being mean and cruel to our fellow human beings. There's nothing in his message about that.
Say, yeah, it does. That's how it feels to me. Anyway, what he said is like, you could certainly say the way you said it was like, I'm going to go spend time with them because I like them. But the second part of, I like them better than you, it just seems unnecessary. And
it is. It's unnecessary. But Mary, as along with it being unnecessary, if it's the truth, aren't I and the other person better off ultimately for acknowledging that truth? And it doesn't have to be done cruelly.
No, not in every case. No, I can't say that yet. I don't know. I'll have to work on that.
Okay, but then just understand that what we're talking about in a book like that, just like with A Course in Miracles or The Way of Mastery, we're talking about what you might consider a different order of scale than everyday communications, right? And so when he's trying to get us to understand that if we withhold saying something to someone because we're afraid of their emotional response, it might be an indication that we're engaged in a special relationship or a codependent relationship, or we have somehow come to believe that they are responsible for our emotions and or we are responsible for theirs, and so we're not perceiving accurately. We're coming from one of those messy, cultural, conditioned rat's nests of drama-trauma interactions that only lead to more drama-trauma.
Ramakrishna once said, "Tell the truth, but not a harsh truth." And so I drew that line, but that was a harsh truth. That's all. I get what you're saying. You're saying everything is an opportunity to learn and grow and observe. Everything that raises even the tiniest hackle is something that is a gift to be used to grow. I get that. Okay. But I'm never going to say that to somebody. Never.
Well, but that's okay. And it isn't as important for me to say it to the other as for me to understand it for myself and to be honest with myself.
Easy.
That level of honesty with myself is where everything starts.
Right. Okay.
All right. Well, I thank you both for your comments and questions. We have expended our time, and we're here. I'll mute you both so we can do the transition. We're here at the end of our first hour. Michael and Jeannie will be here, and I'll mute you both so we can do the transition. We're here at the end of our first hour. Michael and Jeannie will be here, and I'll just remind us all that we come from love. We're made of the stuff we call love. We actually are love, and everything else is false. Welcome, Jeannie Ryce.